Hello, today we'll present to you our socio-technical problem and how we're going to solve it. So the problem is algorithmic bias in healthcare, and the audience in this case are hospital administrators and government regulators such as the Ministry and AI regulatory bodies. We can divide this problem in two main problems. Problem one is biased data and algorithm design. So what's happening is that the data that's mainly available overrepresents certain groups like white insured urban patients and underrepresents minorities such as black, indigenous, rural, and low income groups. Also, historical inequities are embedded in these health records. So, some demographics that had a non equal access to care or poor past underdiagnosis is affecting the data that the AI learns from. And also, third point is that the models that are already available in healthcare are sometimes using the wrong targets to determine problem, such as cost instead of clinical need, thus reinforcing inequalities. So this leads to biased models that deliver wrong diagnosis and care, unequal also. One example of this is the 2019 Optum biased algorithm case. So Optum was a system that the hospitals around the US used, and it was provided by United Health Group. It was used to determine which patient have the most intensive healthcare needs over time. However, the problem was that the AI used the wrong target. It used healthcare cost instead of illness, and since black patients historically received less care, thus lower cost, they were mistaken as low risk. It was debunked finally, and yeah, the article is here below.
Now, I want to talk about the second major issue, which is how AI is used inside hospitals. Even a well-designed model can cause harm if it's not used correctly. One problem is that doctors might trust the AI too much, changing the original assumption because the AI said otherwise. Another issue is that many AI systems work like a black box. Doctors get a final result, but they don't see how the AI reached to that result. Without understanding the reasoning, it's harder for them to judge if the answer makes sense or not. There's also very little regulations for these systems. Unlike drugs or medical devices, AI tools can be used in hospitals without strict testing or approval. That means biased or unreliable systems can slip through without being caught. And finally, AI can create negative feedback loops. If the AI keeps making biased predictions about certain groups, those mistakes build up over time and make inequality even worse. So overall, biased data is only part of the problem. How AI is used and supervised in real hospitals environments is just as important. Here's an example that shows how this happens in real life. A 2024 study looked at how doctors diagnose cancer when an AI suggestion was shown to them. This relates to something called automation bias, which basically means people tend to trust automated systems more than they should. The study found that when the AI was wrong, about 7% of doctors changed their answers to the AI's answer. In other words, they doubted themselves even when they were right. And when doctors were under time pressure, they relied on AI even more. This shows how quickly AI can influence decisions, especially in fast paced medical settings. So, this example makes one thing very clear. Without training, transparency, and proper oversight, even small AI mistakes can lead to harm for patients. That's why managing how AI is used is just as important as fixing the technology itself.
What's the solution? The first solution is to use fair data and algorithms. We need to use diverse and representative training data. AI models should be trained on datasets that include different racial, gender, and age groups to avoid learning patterns based only on a narrow population. Environments also need to be considered. We need to test the model's accuracy and error rate for each demographic group. Evaluate performance separately for groups. This is to ensure that the model is safe and reliable for everyone, not just the majority. We need to avoid using harmful variables. So instead of using cost as a target, implementing other ones such as medical severity and likelihood of disease progression will reflect the true medical need.
Finally, solution 2, safe deployment and oversight. If we train healthcare staff to use AI as a tool to help reinforce their own ideas and judgment rather than relying on it would ensure a more robust decision-making model. This ties in to making clear model summaries for clinicians. If a model is not trained enough on some demographic, doctors shouldn't rely on it. An example of that would be to evaluate all subsets of people so that biases are adjusted properly and fairly. And if that cannot be done, then doctors should not rely on it. If we regularly audit input data, this could potentially solve that negative feedback loop mentioned previously. Human peer review would be able to prevent existing inequalities and potentially adjust its model to prevent it for the future as well. Thank you very much.